And so, the prevailing opinion is that the Jews just sit there and didn't resist, and they just allowed themselves to be treated like this. But actually, that's not true. We all resisted. When I was looking for food every day, and when I found something, that's resistance. When people who were talented sang songs and told jokes, that's resistance. People who had been teachers before the war were teaching their classes in these small places behind their backs, in these little dark rooms. And some people who had talent actually performed, sang. Of course, the songs were sort of gallows songs. They were always something about, typical ones would be a song about what a heavenly place the ghetto is. Yeah. And we told each other jokes. You would imagine in a time like this, you wouldn't be joking around too much. But they were all gallows jokes. And so because you're such a wonderful audience, I'll tell you one of them. And so if you heard it before, you can stop me, okay? This Nazi who has been roaming around the ghetto and eastern part of Europe, shooting people with his pistol, finally got bored with it. He had done it so much and it wasn't fun anymore. And so he had this Jew he was going to shoot, and he decided to have a little fun with him. He told him that one of his eyes are made of glass by this wonderful German technician, and no one could tell the difference between the real eye and the glass eye. And that if he could tell the difference, he would spare his life. So the Jew looked in each one of his eyes and finally pointed to one, and sure enough, he was right. And the Nazi was astounded. He said, "How in the world did you do this? No one ever guessed before. How did you guess?" So the Jew says, "Well, I looked in each one of your eyes, and in one of them, I saw a little glimmer of humanity. I knew that was glass." There was stuff like that going on all the time. I have lots of them. We don't have time for me to tell you all. About the same time that the ghetto was established, they also broke their agreement with the Soviet Union, and the Nazis invaded the rest of Eastern Europe. They went through that eastern part of Europe quickly. And behind the invading armies, they sent special troops. And their job was to find Jews who lived in these small towns like mine, of which there were many in that area, in that eastern part of Europe, and murder them. That was the only job. So they had their weapons and their orders, and they marched out there and found Jews in these different small towns to murder. So 2 months after that second invasion, after they invaded the rest of Eastern Europe, they came through my hometown, where my whole extended family lived. They drove the Jewish people out of their homes, down to the edge of the forest. The men were murdered that day, and the women and children were held in a barn for several more days. And they too disappeared. So we have a marked grave for the men where they were buried, but not for the women. And I suppose eventually there's going to be found, because they are still today finding graves, common graves, all over that eastern part of Europe that had not been uncovered yet. As a result of the action of that one battalion of soldiers, one group that came through, everyone who was related to me in Poland, other than those of us who were in Krakow at the time, died. That includes my oldest brother, who was 19 when the war began. He escaped the first invasion and ran east as fast as he could. And of course, he ended up with his grandparents on the Soviet side until 1941, and he too got caught in that roundup and murdered at age 21. So in the meantime, in the ghetto, they were left with my second oldest brother, Salig. His real name was Bezalel. We called him Salig. My sister Aviva, my brother David, and I. And after roaming around that eastern part of Europe with their battalions, with their soldiers, murdering, shooting people, the Germans decided, or the Nazis decided, that in order to accomplish their goal, things were not going fast enough. You know, as it turns out, that those people who do research in these and study those periods like to name various periods of times, like the Holocaust is a name given by a researcher. This period of time where they were sending out these troops to all around Eastern Europe to murder Jews in these small towns is called Holocaust by bullets. And so they decided that was not going fast enough, and of course with good German technology and good science, they devised ways of murdering people en masse, because they already started experimenting with that in their own country, with their own people, with their homosexuals, with their handicapped, you know, starting to eliminate them. They're purifying the race. And so once those camps were established, these factories called death camps, they began transporting Jews from the ghettos directly to the death camps. And so I know that some of you have seen Schindler's List, the movie. Is that right? Yes? Yeah. Okay. And so you remember, if you saw the movie, you remember that there was a transport formed, and Schindler discovered that his accountant was rounded up by mistake. He didn't have his papers with him, whatever. And so Schindler went to the railroad station to rescue him. They looked through the railroad cars and called Stern's name. Eventually, Schindler found Stern, got him off the train, and Stern survived with us at the end on Schindler's List. As accurate as the movie was, it's still a movie. It can't show you everything. It can only show you samples of things that happen.